Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Damontae bringing you a banger. Don't forget to follow on my Twitch, please. This is where we have daily content. 5 best builds for Death Sentence 1 down from a 13,000 hour player. These are builds that you guys are actually going to want to see. Things that are high in damage can be things like your carry builds, you're easily surviving the map, complete tanks, anything that you can think of. That's the builds that are going to be here at the moment. All of the builds here that I have built are relatively easy to play, and the way that I'm going to be showing them to you will be easy in the way that I'm showing them to you. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and start with the Copycat perk deck. So this specific Copycat build uses the Anarchist armor regen and then pairing all of the dodge cards together to make a dodge armor regen setup. Now this build will play similar to the ABC Rogue, which you guys have probably seen in the past. So it brings first aid kits for the aggressive playstyle and being able to move across the whole map with ease. Next, we're grabbing things like the AMR-16, which is great for long-ranged combat and the damage that it deals at that long-ranged combat. It's really good at close-range engagements, and the biggest downside to the AMR-16 is that it's going to be lacking ammo. So therefore, you need to be kind of cautious with the amount of ammo that you're spraying at each time. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad gun with that, standpoint, it's just you need to be slightly more accurate when playing. Next, the secondary weapon that we're using allows us to play the way that we're playing, which is the Mark 10. Sometimes with this weapon, you're going to be pulling it out more often than you're going to be wanting to use the AMR-16 as an example. But generally, the AMR-16 is to be playing from ranged and using it to one-tap things, while the secondary weapon's more for moving around and shooting things at, all costs. Now this build does bring natural HP regen in with it from headshots based on a cooldown of 2 seconds, and it gives you 10 HP. Now this can be useful in the sense of if you took light damage and you don't want to heal from a first aid kit. Now, where this doesn't really benefit you that much in this build is that if you do take 225 damage and then you're trying to heal yourself with headshots, it's going to take quite a while to get back all your health here. So in that sense, that's why we have first aid kits. Now let's talk a little bit more on the Mark 10 here. The Mark 10 is more of the spam weapon. It's mostly used when sprinting, as I just mentioned, in close quarters engagements, and it's even good for breaking faceplates off dozers, and then switching weapons to the AMR-16 and stuff like that. Now once you position yourself into, certain areas and place that distance in between you and the others, that's where the AMR-16 becomes really good. Positioning is very key in this build. You may seem unkillable, but if you're going to be playing in a reckless style, you're still going to get killed. And that's like for every build in this list here. And that thing, plays the same for Anarchist, it'll play the same for Stoic, and so on and so forth. So what you really need to do and understand inside this build here is that you need to get comfortable with the areas that you need to play, the positions, and the distance that you need to play. And the distance makes sense here because of targeting system and your dodge factor. You want to position correctly so that you can effectively see and handle all of the angles that are seeing you, and you'll be able to fend off everything that's seeing you. And then if that's the case, if you can be able to fend off everything that's seeing you and have first aid kits in your arsenal, you're pretty much never going to die. Now, let's go over the skills for the build here. As I've already mentioned, we grab ourselves uppers for the aggressive, play style and having the life regen given to us. Next, I'm grabbing things like Rifleman because I like to snap to zoom that quickly, and the movement speed while being in, sight lines. Next, I'm also getting extra accuracy while moving. Next, I'm getting standing still accuracy and stability. Then I grab things like Bullseye to match the already existing armor regen from the Anarchist from the Copycat perk deck. Then I'm grabbing things like Scavenger, grabbing things like Surefire Basic and Lock and Load Basic so I can shoot and run at the same times. Then I'm also grabbing things like Stability and Accuracy inside the same skill tree. Next, I'm grabbing things like Extra Dodge by Sneaky Bastard and Duck and Cover, while also grabbing things like Sprint Reload. Next, I'm grabbing things like Optical Illusions, crits, full crits, and grabbing myself extra damage with high value target, and Lastly, same with the ABC Rogue, I'm grabbing myself Berserker, because Berserker in this style of play, we don't always take damage, and we don't always consistently take life damage, so therefore Berserker, when we do take life damage, will come into effect, and with the armor regen that this build, gives us, it makes the Berserker more worth playing. Now, going over the weapons here, for the AMR-16 we're using the long barrel, which is giving us the accuracy and the damage increase. Next I'm grabbing things like the bigger the better suppressor for the accuracy and stability, then grabbing concealment because we still need to be mindful of our concealment. Next I'm grabbing the blast from the past, which gives me stability and concealment. Next I'm grabbing the compact laser module, which gives me no statistical change. As for grips, you have a couple of choices here, but I went for the titanium skeletal grip, which is giving me some concealment. Next, I'm grabbing the thrust lower receiver, which is just some damage increase. Next, I'm using the speed pull mag. Even though it's all, minuses, we're still getting that reload time, so therefore, definitely worth grabbing. Next, I grabbed the 45-degree sight. This just gives you a little bit more of concealment. I'm grabbing the Seymour sight. This is purely optional. It's just, whatever sight you like to use. As for stocks here, you have a couple of options to choose from, but I go for the wide stock, which is giving me some stability and some concealment. As for the upper receivers, I am using the LW upper receiver, which is giving me an accuracy and stability increases. Now, as for the secondary weapons, we're using the Mark 10 with the bigger the better suppressor. Next, we are grabbing a concealment increase, while also grabbing things like the compact laser. This right here, the custom built frame, does nothing to the gun, it just makes it look different. Me personally, I wanted it, so I put it on there. Next, I go for the fast mag. Yes, this has a lot of minuses, but still makes you reload faster. I don't go for any sights due to concealment. We do not go for any stocks due to concealment. Now, here is the Leech perk deck. This was previously featured inside my best Leech builds video, and it was the AMR SMG build. So this build was featured inside of a weekly build series, and it was also featured inside the Leech perk deck video. This one actually uses a AR and SMG pairing together to effectively handle all ranges of combat. With the primary rifle being the Queen's Wraith, it has high accuracy, high stability, pairing it with like a normal damage for that style of gun. Inside this build, we do bring full crits, which allows us to push as much as possible, and the damage we deal will allow us to push out as much as possible. Now, the ranges we use in this build will also come in effect with the body expertise that we use. This will, in conjunction with each other, help me kill the cops faster, which will allow me to get my ampule faster, which will allow me to, just survive more quickly. Now, the secondary SMG we have here is the P90, and you have lots of options to choose from, which is within this damage type of category, which is about 60 damage. In that 60 damage area range, once again, you have multiple different SMGs to choose from. The P90 in specific has 65 bullets in its mag, which helps a lot during the times that you're wanting to reload your primary rifle or something in that nature. The ammo regen for your primary is pretty good, and the same is said for your secondary. So if you're going to be using the primary and then you switch over to your SMG, and then you use your SMG to fill up your primary, and then you switch back to your primary to fill your SMG, that's how things are going to be working inside this build. Extremely balanced. Now, we do grab Inspire Basic inside this build because the Leech has an ability inside of its perk deck abilities that if I use the injector when I'm downed, if I stand myself back up with it, I can use a medic bag or heal a teammate and I'll stay alive. That's the reason why I'm using Inspire inside this build. Now, I do want to mention that this build has multiple forms of HP regen, and I'll go over them right now. One of them is being the first aid kits, which are instantaneous full HP regen. The next is going to be the injector, which gives us an instant 40% of my HP healed back to me immediately. And then the other form of healing in this deck that's not hostage taker is going to be when you're using your injector. If you are to get 2 kills during your injector, then it results in you getting a 10% heal from the, the deck. So that results in you having 3 forms of life regen inside the build. Now, let's go over the skills for the build here. As I've already mentioned, we have Inspire so that we can heal our teammates quickly, and it plays together with our perk deck abilities. Next we have Uppers, which allows us to play pretty aggressive and will give us instantaneous HP regen. Next I'm grabbing myself Partners in Crime, and I'll also get on to Quick Fix here in a second. The reason for Partners in Crime is that it gives me 3-shot HP rather than just 2-shot HP. And then now let's get into the Quick Fix Ace. The reason why I went for Quick Fix Ace here is because if I'm not able to get a Joker for 3-shot HP, simply using one first aid kit offers me 3-shot HP. So therefore, I can get 3-shot HP without a Joker, and I can get 3-shot HP with a Joker. Now that's huge, and that's amazing for survivability. Next, I'm grabbing things like Staple Shot for just, stability. I'm grabbing things like Bullseye for extra armor regen, some passive armor regens from Shock and Awe and Resilience, and then I'm grabbing Die Hard Ace for extra armor, so therefore I can have 70 armor inside the Ballistic Vest. Next, I'm grabbing things like Body Expertise, Surefire, and Steady Grip Ace for, stability, accuracy, and that damage output. Next, I'm grabbing things like Inner Pockets and Optical Illusions Ace to conceal my weapons so that I can get full crits from Unseen Strike and Low Blow pairing together. Next, I'm grabbing things like How Value Target and the Professional for some accuracy and extra damage output on special enemies. Now, as for the weapons here, as I mentioned, I'm using the Queen's Wraith, but I'm using the smaller barrel for the concealment. Next, I'm using the biggest suppressor, which is the KS-12, which is giving me mostly the accuracy is what I was going for. As for boost, we also went for accuracy. As for the foregrips, we're using the versatile foregrip for the stability and concealment increase. Next, I'm using the laser. I'm not sure why I'm using that actually, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. So therefore, we have full crits. I think the reason being is that we have a fast mag on here, and when I created this build previously, the fast mags didn't minus concealment, so therefore that's why we had something like this on here. But let's go ahead. Next, we're going for the grip, which is the delightful grip, more for just stability. Next, as I just mentioned, the speed pull mag is giving us a minus to our concealment, but that's totally fine because we just fixed it. Next, you could also fix that issue by grabbing the 45-degree angle. Purely optional. Same thing here, purely optional. I'm using the Seymour sight. You can use any sight that you like. Next, that is it. As for the P90 here, we are using the Maul Ninja suppressor for the stability increase. Next, we are going for a +2 concealment increase. Then we go for the compact laser module. Then going for the custom assault frame, which is just the look of the gun. Next we go for the magazine, which does give us a minus in every category, but it does give us a reload speed increase. Lastly, you can throw a sight on this gun if you have enough concealment to play around, but I did not go for anything on this gun because I didn't need any sights. The Anarchist perk deck. This build was specifically also featured inside of a weekly build, and I have and had plans to make the Anarchist best builds video still. But this is a 3-shot Anarchist armor sniper rifle build that you could pretty much use any of the 3 semi-automatic sniper rifles, being, the Contractor 308, the Lassenberger, or as I'm using here, the Grom. Alternatively, the same thing can be said for your secondaries. You don't have to use the Mark 10 per se. You could be using, different things like maybe the Micro Uzi or the AK Gen. Pretty much you're just wanting something that can crank out a bunch of damage and be used in conjunction with the sniper rifle as a primary, way of surviving. So as I just mentioned, this is a sniper rifle setup that uses 3-shot armor inside of the suit more specifically, and I can go over the ways that this happens. But I will mention that the minimum that people use normally inside Anarchist is a 2-shot minimum, not a 3-shot as I'm working with here. Now I will like to point out that if you're using a 2-shot minimum, it allows you to spend points in another spot, but you have to keep in mind and understand that if you're using 3-shot, that's more survivability. What does that even mean? That means you get to play more and you survive more. So as a base survival, we're going to be using Armor Gate, obviously, but we could bring other armor gates like Bullseye to the table, and we get ourselves multi-shot armor by grabbing things like Iron Man, and then also getting ourselves Frenzy Aced. Now, the armor that you get from Bullseye Aced inside this build also makes a difference because the 25 armor regen is what gets us another 3-shot armor, or I should say, another shot of armor. So as I mentioned, here's some of the math behind it. If your total armor is 313 and you're taking 225 damage, and if you have Frenzy Aced, that changes 225 to 168. If you're taking 168 from your 313 HP, that equals to 145. If you have, Bullseye trigger for 25 armor on your 145 leftover armor, that puts you at like 170. 170 minus another 225, which is actually 168, leaves you with 2 armor. 2 armor equals another 168, and you guys understand what's going on, right? So from that right there, you literally have 3-shot armor inside of the suit with just one method. But you have to keep in mind that method is a Joker for the extra armor, it is Iron Man for the extra armor, and it is Frenzy Ace for the damage reduction, and then you're using Bullseye Ace for the armor regen. So let's go over the other method here. This is another 3-shot, method of getting 3-shot armor inside Anarchist. One of them, is the one I just went over. Here's the second one, which is everything the same, being a Joker, being Iron Man, being Frenzy, but instead of Bullseye Aced, which is a tier 3 skill, you're going to actually ace Underdog, which is a tier 1 skill, and that's going to offer you 10% damage reduction for 7 seconds, but having that 10% damage reduction for 7 seconds is enough damage reduction to allow you to get 3-shot armor. Now, I like to mention this while we're on this topic. 25 armor regen from Bullseye is actually pretty much the same as having 10% damage reduction, and it's pretty much the same as having the 20 absorption as a teammate from the Maniac. Now let me put this into perspective. If there's multiple things that are equaling the same outcome, that's how you're able to do stuff like this. So as previously mentioned in the Maniac video, you offer your teammates practically a 10% damage reduction. Now, as you guys can understand, a 25 armor regen from Bullseye is essentially giving yourself a 10% damage reduction only if you have armor left over, right? Now the same thing is happening here if you're using the Underdog method. You're going to be giving your armor already damage reduction, so therefore when you take the 225 damage, having the frenzy, and then including the extra damage reduction, then it changes the damage to like 146 instead of 148, right? So in that sense, you're pretty much the same armor value here, but slightly different method of playing. Now the last method of 3-shot armor in the suit here, and some of you may have already guessed it, it's going to be the same thing, which is the Partners in Crime for the armor increase, is going to be Iron Man for the armor increase, and then you're going to be going for Frenzy Aced for the damage reduction, and then lastly, you're going to be going for a tier 2 skill, which is First Aid Kits Aced, to give you 2 minutes of 10% damage reduction, which makes it more consistent for 3-shot armor. And this method here is the most consistent method other than the Bullseye method. The reason why I feel the Bullseye method is the most consistent is because you always have control over shooting, you always have control over your aim, so therefore, if you're able to have control over your aim, and when you're shooting, therefore you can land headshots and guarantee when you're going to trigger your 3-shot armor. Now to put this in perspective with the first aid kits, let's say you place a first aid kit, you use it, that's going to guarantee that you're going to have 3-shot armor for 2 minutes straight, rather than having just, Bullseye method for every time that you have full armor, then you're going to be able to get shot once, trigger the Bullseye Ace to give you the extra 2 shots of armor. I know that's a little bit confusing, and I tried to go over it as simple as I can, but basically you have 3 methods inside of the Anarchist suit to get 3-shot 225 damage to your armor. So now, let's go over the skills for the build here. As I've mentioned, you need to get Partners in Crime aced for that armor increase. This right here, when you grab a Joker, if you have the Iron Man skill, will throw you up to 313 armor, which is very useful. Next, we're grabbing things like Graze, which that's the main basis of the build. It's a sniper rifle build, so therefore most of our damage is going to come from here. Next, as I mentioned, we need Iron Man. Iron Man is useful for the sense of the 3-shot armor, so that's why we're grabbing it. And grabbing Iron Man puts you at 205 base armor. Next, we have to grab Bullseye Aced for the first and most consistent method of 3-shot armor. Next, we grab things like Steady Grip for just accuracy. Then we grab things like some crits. We grab Optical Illusions for some concealment and the less likely targeting. Then we grab Professional for the suppressor, accuracy, and stability skills. And we grab High Value Target to be dishing out massive damage to dozers and things like that. As I just mentioned, we need Frenzy Aced so that we get the most damage reduction possible, while also getting Berserker for the most damage possible inside the build. Now, as for the guns here, we do go for the Grom. I personally just like the Grom more than the other ones, so let's just go ahead and go for the Grom. You could build the other ones, you know, this is just how I'm playing it. We go for the, I think this is just the Suppressed Barrel, which allows us to have more concealment. Next, I go for the Accuracy increase. Then we go for the Lightweight Foregrip for more concealment. As for the gadgets, we use a Compact Laser. Then for the secondary sights, we do go for the 45 degree for the extra concealment. As for the sights, we do go for the Seymour sight. It's purely optional. As for the stocks here, I go for the lightweight stock, definitely, you know, useful for that concealment. Now, as for the secondary weapons, we're using the Mark 10 with the bigger the better suppressor. Next, we are grabbing a concealment increase, while also grabbing things like the compact laser. This right here, the custom built frame, does nothing to the gun, it just makes it look different. Me personally, I wanted it, so I put it on there. Next, I go for the fast mag. Yes, this has a lot of minuses, but still makes you reload faster. I don't go for any sights due to concealment. We do not go for any stocks due to concealment. The beloved Kingpin perk deck. This is one of everyone's favorite builds, and perk decks, I should say. This was actually my first perk deck video that we made in this series, and is my most popular to date. To start us off though, we have a sniper rifle with full crits, and then we accommodate it with a pistol, and for the most part in this build you're going to be using the sniper rifle to be controlling like all of the enemies at range practically, but even at close range you'll be fine because you'll be able to dish out damage still to these enemies with the pistol and or using Graze with the sniper rifle. The key here though is to hit crowds of enemies so that you can use the Graze to really take them all out, obviously, but the other part of that is that you're going to be not exposing yourself as much. Now, this build does have an extremely powerful sidearm, being the Deagle pistol, and you'll pretty much use this pistol, or any pistol that is, if you wanted to, just for like dozers, and it's extremely high damage. But the flip side is you can practically pull it out and like shoot at any cops at any time whatsoever. The pistol's not shy to deal damage here. But with whatever pistol that you choose, I went with the Deagle specifically because it has high damage and a great fire rate, and the concealment's really good, plus it has amazing accuracy, great pickup, so it's just the kind of thing that you're wanting to go for in this build. If the player's able to hit headshots in this build also, you won't even have to like worry about, you know, pulling to your pistol because you can just use your sniper. And if you are using your sniper, you'll be rewarded with killing whole crowds with one shot, and you'll be rewarded with faster reload times from the sniper rifle skill, which transfers over to your pistol, assuming you shot some stuff, switch over to the pistol and reload it. This build does feature one Joker, and we practically pair up a bunch of damage skills together, things like full crits, top tier pistol, Graze. We supply ourselves with high accuracy skills. We get to 70 armor so that we can stop light units from damaging our 414 HP. That is pretty useful in the sense of a 3-shot HP build like the Kingpin here, because you don't always want to offer a HP shot out for the lighter damage units. You always want to kind of have your armor stop that stuff. Plus, timing your injector in this build is how you'll profit every single time that you use it. If you're using it too early, you'll be dying right after, or you'll be dying, during, or you'll be dying during a heal. Like, there's just so many things that, happen, so you need to be timing your injector perfectly every time. Now, surviving without the injector, on the other hand, is something the player has to have enough knowledge in the game. Situational awareness, HP awareness, armor, things like this are the things that you're going to have knowledge of before making a move without the injector. Like things like bullseye or HP, you know, these are the things you have to keep in mind, or knowing if you have a joker, or knowing the position and the angles. Like all this stuff is what you have to keep in mind before making a move without injector. Overall, this is one of the most strong ways to play Kingpin. You have Grays dealing with practically everything. You have literally, you know, high damage skills for close range. You yourself practically never die because you're the Kingpin, and if you're using the injector correctly and effectively, you know, positioning yourself, you're never really taking too much damage because you're not going to be overexposing yourself, obviously. So let's go over the skills for the build here. We go for Combat Medic in case we get, you know, Inspire, Painkiller shouted. Next we go for Hostage Taker with Partners in Crime for the 3-shot HP and the natural passive HP heal. Next we're going for the Grays for the main damage of the build, and as I mentioned, Aggressive Reload, which plays in hand for both of our weapons. Next we're using Bullseye and Die Hard for the increased armor for my Ballistic Vest and instant armor regen. Next, we're grabbing things like the crits, full crits to keep in mind. We're using inner pockets to conceal my ballistic vest even more. And we're using optical illusions, as I said earlier, so that we're not always getting shot at and that we can survive longer durations. Next, we're using high value target. This plays in hand with our pistol, which is right here. Trigger happy skill to give us massive damage increase. So when we run up on a dozer and we whip the pistol out and we use the fire rate, you know, that we increase here from gun nut, it actually makes it shoot insanely fast, and you're able to deal a massive amount of damage to the dozer, so therefore he doesn't survive. As for the weapons here, it's the R700, you know, making it the short barrel, keeping 258 damage. Next we're using concealment, then we're using another concealment. Alternatively, you can use the 45-degree sight, but I did not. I go for the Seymour sight, purely optional. As for the stock here, I go for the military, which is accuracy increase. Alternatively, you can go for the tactical stock, but I always think that bolt action rifles and stability is useless. Now, as for your pistol here, I'm going for the IPSC compensator, and we're keeping threat level for the way that the cops react to threat. You know, it just plays in hand with the way that we're playing Kingpin in this build. We go for concealment. We go for the micro laser. We go for the bling grip, which gives us concealment plus stability. Then we go for the marksman sight, which gives us accuracy and stability at no cost to anything. The ever beloved Stoic, more specifically the sniper Stoic, which was originally shown in the weekly build series, but also featured inside of the best Stoic builds series. The Sniper Stoic build uses the Platypus and the Krinkhoff AK. Mostly you're wanting to play from range, obviously, since you're using a sniper rifle here, but if you can hit your shots with the sniper rifle, it is actually the best weapon to be using at close ranged and medium ranged combats as well. For those who don't understand like the way Stoic works, you literally can tank insane damage and, you know, just hit your flask and it all comes right back. With this, you should be wanting to use this to your advantage and playing Stoic like a tank, you know, massively tanking as much as you can for your team, not just for yourself. Because when you're getting shot multiple times and you're exposing yourself to get shot multiple times, that's the damage that your teammates could have taken, and your HP is actually able to take it. Now, on the alternative side here, if your HP does get too low, you have first aid kits immediately to give you your HP back. Now, I will say that this build does fit pretty well with being DPS, even though it's not even DPS focused. It's not like, you know, you're the one trying to kill everything off like you're an anarchist or something. Like, you're here mostly trying to play the role of picking all the enemies off, picking out the crowd, and also tanking as much damage as possible. Now, you'll be wanting to keep yourself alive by picking off the certain enemies, and, you know, playing the build will excel by pushing through to the objective, because you have to keep in mind you're Stoic. You will find yourself in this setup specifically, if you play calm and relaxed, there's really nothing that's really going to get to you. There's nothing that's going to damage you enough that you're not ready for. Now, part of that also is the positioning of yourself and, knowing the angles and all this other stuff of the enemies. You can't just jump into a game and expect you to know everything. You still need that experience and knowledge for the build. Now, let's go over the skills for the build here. This one has Inspire because as we're playing Stoic and as you're a tank and you literally survive everything, you can afford to have, some Inspire here. As I mentioned, we grab painkillers. We also have first aid kits. Next, I grabbed 2 Jokers, which also aid me in my own, combat endeavors, while also grabbing Hostage Taker to now have 2 forms from the skills of healing. And that's not to mention that we have the Calm ability, and we have the Flask inside Stoic. Next, I'm grabbing things like Graze, Ammo Efficiency, and Aggressive Reload to really keep me in the fight with the Platypus. Next, I'm grabbing things like Die Hard just for the damage reduction when interacting, Scavenger. Then I'm grabbing crits inside of the build, which gives me 35%, and that, with a 500 damage sniper, that's massive damage to the specials. And not to mention, we have high value target for the specials. Next, we're grabbing the professional for the, the accuracy and stability additives. Also grabbing optical illusions, which plays hand in hand with Jokers and AI teammates and teammates alike. As for the Platypus, I'm actually playing it with the suppressor. I prefer it. Next, I'm going for the total ammo. Every shot equals a kill in this build, so therefore the 2 extra ammo to me is worth grabbing. Next, the LED combo. Honestly, it's a bolt action rifle, so therefore stability to me doesn't matter at all. Next, you could throw on the 45-degree sight. Me, I didn't. As for the scopes or sights, I go for the Seymour sight. I like to play more, close to medium range, and I can hit long range, with the Seymour sight still. So to me, not really that big of an issue. As for the crank cuff here, we're trying to get as much accuracy and stability as we can, so we go for the bigger the better. Next, we go for an accuracy increase. Next, we can throw on the charging handle at the cost of accuracy. I did not go for it. We go for the scope mount so that our sight is not in the front of the gun, it's in the back. That is pretty helpful to me, at least. It also gives you some stability, just to mention. The Moscow foregrip, that one right there gives you 8. Next, we go for the LED combo, which gives me another 8 stability. Then we go for the AK plastic grip, which is giving me 8 accuracy, which I promote to go for in this build rather than more of the stability here. Next, I go for the speed pull mag. Yes, it minuses out a bunch of things. To me, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Now, that's it for today's video. I'd like to thank our members on YouTube, more specifically Akatosh. Thank you for being my first, and then you subbed, or however you want to refer to it as. You became a member for another month. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much, my friend. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more gaming content, or more Payday content, I should say. Leave me, a comment, what you guys think about this video. What do you guys think is the best perk out of the 5? Which build did you guys prefer the most? Which ones do you guys enjoy the most? Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.